there will be no real non-controlled currency in the world.
We're coming for you, banks.
Bitcoin is punk rock. Deal with it.
You split, we bankrupt you.
Do you use Lightning wallets to pay for things or not?
No.
Bitcoin Cash would be seen as more of a threat to the United States hegemony than Bitcoin.
Milestown, what's your favorite kind of money?
Bitcoin Cash.
All right. Hello and welcome back to the Bitcoin Cash podcast following Bitcoin Cash on its rise to global reserve currency. This is episode number 37, the 1-year anniversary and bear market survival guide, because we're coming in hot with some real positivity at the start of the year. Today is Sunday, the 23rd of January, 2022. I'm your host, Jeremy, and Jett is doing the producing and also going to be filling in as the guest or, co-discusser as well today. So yeah, it's been a year of the podcast. Absolutely incredible. And we've got a bit of a section. So we'll talk about that. But first things first, we got to get through the usual stats and updates. So starting with the price, the bear market meltdown is continuing. Today, one Bitcoin Cash is roughly $288 US. One BTC buys about 122 BCH, and generally just like the fear in the markets has been increasing. So I personally am actually quite relieved, because I've been consistently bearish on this show in the last episode, in the Christmas episode, and all that. So I hope everybody is staying safe and surviving the collapse of BCH and all other cryptos. But, it is just the way of the world. And I'm kind of not really, surprised to see it. I do think we will be seeing over, basically, I think we're in the crypto winter, right? So historically, Bitcoin spikes, roughly every 4 years in a huge wave of adoption as everyone gets really excited. And then, things get to a new paradigm, everybody's euphoric and all that. But of course, that hype doesn't last, because the actual groundswell of adoption is rising but hasn't caught up to that, and then sort of crashes down, and people end up kind of in this long, slow grind for the next 2 to 4 or 5 years, depending, basically, where everybody is just, the price is just slowly declining, and everybody's really sad, and but that's when the true strength of the crypto markets, is found, because whoever got a bit overexcited, well, they kind of have to learn some hard lessons, and the companies and stuff that have real valuable products kind of get left behind as everybody else kind of gets washed out of the market, because all their funding and stuff dries up. So essentially that's what, the situation I think we're in. That's what I've been saying for quite a long time, even pretty much not since the start of the podcast, because it was still in hype at that stage, but definitely since, May of last year. So everybody else claiming that it's the bull cycle and we're going to the super cycle and new heights. Well, probably not looking too good for them at the moment. But hey, anything can always change. I don't know, Jett. Are you laughing there? Are you gonna?
Yeah. Something stock to flow. Something. It's all bullshit.
Yeah, it's all completely out the window. That's the funniest thing about it, actually, is all the tweets of, oh, we're going to be 100K in 2021. That's all been memory hold. Everybody hastily deleting their tweets or whatever. A lot of them, and I saw somebody as well calling out, like, laser eyes profile pictures are on the way out, because it was laser ray to 100K, but 100K is looking a bit shaky. Slash maybe never gonna happen. Who knows? Yeah. So they're all ducking and running for cover, but it's still been bearish on this show, and I'm glad of that, because it means that the listeners should hopefully have been kind of expecting this. and I don't feel any moral obligation that I would have like baited anyone into any like bad investments or whatever. Not that I'm definitely going to get every single market movement right. You know, everyone should make their own individual choices. We will like discuss some strategies and tips, but for the most part, anyway, the market's been melting down and will probably continue to do so. So just a heads up on that one. As for the transactions, we've got BCH is seems to have flatlined out a bit at about 45,000 transactions to kind of start the year, which is, I think, a pretty good starting point, because at the start of last year, or technically just before in December, it had been about 17 or 18,000 transactions for the longest time, right? So that kind of goes to the point that in 2021, maybe the real sort of actual transacting volume and economy grew about 2 or 2.5 times kind of a range, which I think sounds actually fairly realistic once you take out a bit of spam from noise.cash, and once you sort of consider that everybody will be transacting less in the bear market like we've talked out before. So I mean, that seems to me like a very roughly pretty good numbers, and I think that gives a pretty good baseline for 2022 really. And then we got the cent in USD. BCH has also kind of dipped off a bit there, and BTC has spiked, which once again I ascribe to the market's melting down, because in a market meltdown, the BCH market goes quiet because everybody just holds up a bit on actually transacting, and BTC does kind of the opposite, which is everybody panics to get out. So their cent in USD has gone. So BCH went down, to 600 million, from 3 or 4 billion down to 600 million, and has started rising back up to 1.2, 1.3 billion, and probably will rise back up over the next couple of weeks. And then BTC had a spike from 20 billion up to like 60 billion in cent USD. So as once the market volatility gets going, the last major spikes were also at those volatile kind of price points. So that sort of makes sense to me, I think. And just good to see crypto as volatile as ever. Right. So first topic, straight into it. This week, the Bitcoin Cash podcast turns 1. The very first episode went live exactly 1 year ago on the 23rd of January. I believe it was a Friday night, but I would have to check the calendar. But that was exactly 1 year ago. And for any viewers that have not been watching the show since that long, Jett, who just doing the producing, he was actually the guest on the second show, which I believe was maybe like 1 week after that or something like that. So he has been here for the whole time. So, his comments on reflections on the 1 year will be, are going to be very interesting too. But for me, I was thinking about today, looking back, watched a little bit of the first episode and just reflecting on what had changed between then and now. I mean, it seems pretty quick, actually. I mean, it's hard to believe that this is the 37th episode. But 1 year ago, really, the world was just a much darker place. I do honestly believe that we're getting into a more hopeful year in 2022. Like last year, when I started the show, it was in the middle of super harsh lockdowns in the UK. Everybody was feeling very isolated. It was just a tough time. It was the middle of winter. Actually, it was pretty rough and kind of dark winter in London. But yeah, one year later, I'm feeling a lot better. Actually, the world seems to be sort of returning to some sanity. The kind of narrative in the mainstream media is rapidly falling apart, and crypto seems to also be doing. I mean, obviously the market's melting down right now, but the actual awareness of individuals and the sort of momentum of the scene, especially in BCH, does seem to be building. So yeah, I mean, I've got a few things that I want to go through here, a few categories, but yeah, I want to get your thoughts on each of these categories as well too. Like what do you think? 1 year ago to now, are things different? What's yeah.
Well, on my side from the lockdown thing, like I'm gonna try and make this kind of quick because I was bitching about it, I think yesterday morning on Twitter. Like everyone's like, "Oh, do your part, do your part, do your part." I have been so socially isolated, I'm going insane. Like I think my 2022 resolution, a late resolution, but something I think I need, is to get more involved in the meat space again because I'm losing it, and at least I'm
Yeah.
recognizing that. So.
Self-awareness, yeah, no, that's definitely good. I mean, yeah, definitely, like, yeah, you just gotta go outside a bit more, you
Yeah.
know, like
We actually just
even
went
if
into another lockdown here, so
oh man,
yeah.
that is insanity. All right, well, Canada definitely off the deep end, but at least in the UK things are looking better, and probably in several parts of the world. RIP Australia. Shout out to my homeland. Still looking like a mess, to be honest, but what are you going to do? Right. Well, anyway, at least one of us is having a good year. So my favorite thing from the last year, from 1 year of the podcast, I was reflecting on, you know, sort of all the videos, the different guests and so on and so forth that we've had. My favorite thing was the Disloyal video clip that I made at Canary Wharf. It was just such a huge project in terms of making the whole song and then doing the video clip as well. And I think when I watch it now, I've watched it, you know, every couple months or something. I think, oh, you know, let me just watch that again. And I think it's held up pretty well. And I think in given a couple more years of you know, of time, it will come to you know, it will age pretty well. Like at the time when we were actually filming it and stuff, I had quite a different sort of plan for how it would be. Like I had a lot of different places that we could have done filming that would have been like you know, really sort of not cinematic, but they would have been good on camera, you know, and could have done takes here and done this and done that. But then on the day when obviously we tried to do it, the security guards at Canary Wharf were not really loving our cryptocurrency promoting film scrappy setup, and we got kicked off for not having a you know, a permit and stuff, which of course they were sort of said, oh, it would be easy to get a permit, just apply to that. No way, they were never going to give us a permit. And I knew that and they knew that, and so it was both kind of like, oh yeah, no, we didn't know you needed a permit. Oh, they'll definitely give you a permit. But you know, so I was a little worried that it was not when we were doing the filming, like at the end of that day when we'd done all the filming, I sort of felt like maybe it's going to come out a bit shit. But at the end of the day, it did come out. It came out sort of authentic, I think. And just like even those shots that we did filming in the bathtub and stuff like that, that just added a bit of humor. It just goes to show that it was not all sort of well produced, especially because at the time in Canary Wharf when I was there, there's a shot at the start of my guitar and like my water bottle and stuff sitting on the sign for Canary Wharf. Right behind us, there was some people filming sort of an ad or something like that, and they had about 20 people all dressed up to look like stock footage people, you know, with the suits and then you know, clean white shirts and everything, and they were getting them to do this most basic walk over and over and over again until they got the exact corporate perfect take. And the one of the ladies who was on the staff there, she came over to me because I was sitting there with my guitar and everything and said, oh, what are you doing? It looks like you've got a camera and stuff. Are you involved in it? I said, no, I'm just making a music video. And she was kind of like, oh, okay, well, we've got the permits and everything like that. And I was like, oh, I don't have a permit. Don't worry, I'm just going to stay out of your way. But yeah, in hindsight, that was probably my favorite part of the last year, I think. Yeah, I don't know if you had any favorite part of being involved in the show. I mean, I guess we'll get onto the favorite episodes as well in a sec, but
Yeah, I think it's hard for me to say like this is my favorite thing, but I definitely have like a top 3 favorite episodes.
okay, all right, cool. We'll get to that in a second then. So my biggest surprise from doing the podcast over this year has been, sort of in the first episode I kind of talked about it, and in the second episode I decided, okay, I'm going to make the tagline following Bitcoin Cash on its rise to global reserve currency. And I've been like shocked that not one single person, whether in person or online or anywhere, has tried to argue about that with me. Like, not one troll on Twitter or anybody has said, mate, you're delusional. And I mean, obviously people, might think that and then just not say, and just think, okay, look, this is crazy Jeremy with his like, project or whatever like that. But not even a troll on Twitter. Nobody has had a go. Nobody has stepped up to the plate to even try and debate, take the other side of that, even just to be argumentative. So I sort of take that as like, actually, maybe more people in the world than I expected are sort of getting the idea that maybe they might think, okay, well, maybe not Bitcoin Cash, but sort of the whole cryptocurrency thing has now kind of got enough momentum that people are sort of like, yeah, maybe this is what's going on. Maybe we are all just going to ditch, fiat currency, which has been the story, obviously, since Satoshi mined the first block as far as Bitcoin goes. But the rest of the world kind of signing up or getting that idea going, and the government's increasingly being like, well, we've got to make a sort of crypto, CBDC or something. But the more they kind of float that, I think the more everyone thinks, well, the free market has been doing this for ages. Maybe they've just got it right. I don't know. Do you agree with me? Do you think that's the case, or are people just being polite? They're like, Jeremy's delusional, but they're just, not going to bother arguing with me.
I think there's a lot of maximalists that will just like write you off and be like, well, he's a Bcasher, he's obviously delusional. So I don't know if they'd engage, but if like not one, I think, does kind of say something. I'm not quite sure what that something is, but yeah, it's there.
Yeah, I mean, like, even interesting shout out to Bennett Tomlin, who's sort of a crypto skeptic, I guess he would describe, a crypto critic, he would describe himself as, and he came on the show and he was like a really good sport about it. So he didn't say anything. Not that he was under any obligation. Maybe he thinks, yeah, there's a decent chance to that. I don't know, but I do want to have, hopefully as time goes on the show, more people who are not necessarily in the BCH scene. I've promised, a few times that at some point we've got to get a BDC supporter on and have a bit of a direct debate with them. I've kind of done that by proxy with reviewing, and the same with Vitalik, reviewing some clips of him to get more of an Ethereum perspective, or reviewing those stuff by Dan Held or the Kim Dotcom debate. So I've kind of tried to get those voices in there a little bit, but maybe as the show gets a bit bigger, might have a bit more room to reach out to, other segments of the community, like the global community or the crypto community, and get some of those people on, because that would be really interesting. But yeah, I mean, obviously it's going to be tough for them. It's going to be pretty gutsy by anybody who wants to come on this show and argue against BCH. Right. So I also thought about my favorite episodes. So I have my top 3. So I'm going to just run through them and give, maybe we'll do it one by one. I'll do my number 1, then you can do your number 1, and sort of with the reasons. I don't know if people usually do like the counting down or counting up, but anyway, the number 1, my favorite episode, when I thought back to all of them, was episode number 17, which was called BCH in Argentina and the History of Cryptocurrency. And that was with Marcelo Fleischer, who is a 2010 Bitcoin adopter. And not only was the actual content of the episode itself, I thought really, really good. I think it's like 3 hours. It's one of the longest episodes, and it goes through the history of Bitcoin, starting from even before the invention of Bitcoin, like some of the backstory as well too. And in that episode, yeah, I just thought we just covered everything. And at the end of that episode, when we stopped filming it, I felt like, wow, that was a really, really great episode, and I was very honored because Marcelo reached out to me and said, "Hey, can I come on your show?" And I'm a 2010 Bitcoin adopter, and I said yes, and obviously, and that to me, like, there's very few 2010 Bitcoin adopters in the world. They are unbelievably rare. Like, must be less than a couple thousand probably in the whole world. And the fact that even at that point, the show had done enough that he said to me, like, "Oh wow, I think you're really giving a voice to the the original ideas and spirit of Bitcoin. So I want to I'd like to come on the show," and everything like that. And I think to this day that makes him the earliest Bitcoin adopter on the show. So for him to get ousted from that, it would need to be a 2009 adopter, of which there's probably like a couple hundred, if that, in the whole world. So I just thought that was amazing, and I just felt like, wow, I'm obviously it's pretty authentic. So yeah, I recommend that one to the listeners if you tuned in more recently or you missed that or whatever. Episode number 17, I think it really explains the whole crypto thing. But I'm super curious, what is your favorite episode?
I don't know if I have a ranking for them.
Oh, okay.
Um,
But you have 3 in mind.
yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, just, I guess, pick one.
All right. Well, I see it on your list too. So that State of the Revolution episode was definitely in my favorites. That was a fun episode. It felt like everyone was optimistic, and on the total value locked thing, real quick, I noticed that despite the market crashing completely, people haven't removed their BCH from Smart BCH. So that seems like a healthy thing to me. I don't know. But yeah, anyway, that was definitely one of my favorite episodes.
Yeah, so that was my number 2 favorite episode. It was one of the most recent ones. Number 35, State of the Revolution 2021, featuring Ryan Giffen and Vlad Ivanov. And the reason I had it at number 2 is because partly the some of the clips and stuff, that's the most viewed episode. That one kind of went like semi-viral a little bit on YouTube, so that was pretty cool to see. But I thought it was great because I do really like the group discussion episodes that we do, and that episode, firstly, to me, it just seemed like it set a really good precedent that at the end of this year we can do another like Christmas State of the Revolution 2022 episode, and hopefully I can get Ryan and Vlad back on, and we'll be able to really establish like a continuing narrative year to year. And just the end of the year is always just such a great time to reflect on everything that's happened, and having those 2 guys as guests, Ryan and Vlad, they're both very organic creators in the community as well too. So they haven't necessarily been around posting BCH stuff for 5 years, or like even Vlad is kind of more newer to the cryptocurrency game. Ryan was in just a little bit before the fork. It's these it's just that spread of opinions. You can have that diverse spread of opinions all in an organic community that believes in the vision of Bitcoin Cash. And I think that really came out in our discussion, and I think that's great to see. To me, that's the number one thing we should be trying to do is create a community. That's really what it is, the BCH community. And I really felt that with that episode. So that was my second favorite. All right, what was your number 2 there?
I think it was the roundtable discussion, I guess.
Go on. So that was the one we had imaginary username, Cheap Lightning, Bennett Tomlin, and then the 2 of us, and we talked about a bit about Tether and a bit about the Bitcoin Cash maximalism.
Yeah, I think
right.
Like the BCH will crash the least. That's one of my favorite things. Like that whole conversation about us being shit marketers. I don't know. It's hard. I think it's hard for me to put a lot of specifics on why. The big thing for me is like, I don't really know people as involved in crypto in real life. Most of it is still that, internet niche. And so it's nice to be able to sit down and have a discussion. And it felt like an in-person discussion. And no one was like aggressive with it. Everyone was very civil and polite, even with differing opinions. And it was nice to get, other people's takes as well. So yeah, those 2 group episodes were definitely my 2 favorite ones.
Yeah. And I got to say, I mean, there's a lot to be said for that, right? Which is the more as time has gone on, it's always been super important, right? But I've increasingly appreciated, the community aspect of cryptocurrency. I mean, in some ways, it often gets criticized for being like tribal, and it is to a certain extent. But tribal and community do sort of go hand in hand. Tribal is just the extreme version, the version that's gone a bit too far. But really, the whole cryptocurrency thing for me, after being more involved in it in this last year, it's changed a lot of the people that I've met and or that I interact with, or the voices in the world that I'm listening to. So it's linking up people who otherwise might be like, wait, what? Nobody's thinking the way I am, right? So shout out to Cheap Lightning, who's in the Twitch chat as well. Like, when I started with Bitcoin in 2013, there was a Bitcoin community, and I just followed it on Reddit mostly, but it was like nobody I actually knew in real life except for one. Hey, shout out to Ryan as well too. We were just talking about the episode with you, but anyway, just when I started in 2013, it was like nobody. I had one friend who got me into it, who was telling me about Bitcoin, and so we kind of talked about it a little bit, and then I got one of my other mates into it. So I did have like at least one person or 2 people who would didn't think I was crazy, but everybody else you talked to was just like blank stares, or like, this is just crazy, or don't believe it. And so it was just only by having that online community, which was kicking off despite how small it was, that really helped to be a part of it. And I think we're seeing that more and more, even as the cryptocurrency community grows, more and more people find crypto either because they were already thinking that way, or in joining, they sort of start to see the benefit of a lot of their ideals that cryptocurrency preaches, So I think, definitely that community is a part of it. And then my number 3 favorite episode from the first year was, I kind of couldn't leave it off the list, was the first episode, which was called White Paper Whitewashing and History of the Flippening. And obviously for me, it's kind of nostalgic and a bit, sort of sentimental. I think back to what I was doing in my life at that time. Like I said, the sort of lockdowns, and even just the environment of like fear and panic in the world that was kind of going on at that time. I think that will be largely, forgotten to the sands of time. But for me, whenever I look at that, at that episode, I remember exactly, how it was. And another reason that I thought it was really good as well too was because it sort of set the vibe for the show, which is the first episode. It's for the hardcore of crypto. Like, if you watch it, and I've had a couple of people talk to me and say, oh yeah, I found out about your show or whatever, and I listened to the first episode, I just didn't get it. Like, it was, it just went all straight over my head. It was like, and I think, and I say to them, yeah, I mean, that's fine. Maybe listen to a couple of the other episodes, or now you can go on bitcoincashpodcast.com and look at the start guide to kind of get up to speed. But at that time, when I made that first episode, it was essentially for the community at RBTC on Reddit, who I knew were having, the same thoughts and thinking the same things as me. And that's people who have already been in the game a long time, and they understood, and there's all this sort of nuance and complexity to it. And so while the show, I do try and make it as approachable as possible, because obviously we're always going to have new cryptocurrency adopters and new people coming into the scene. So I do try and sort of explain or highlight those things as they come up. But probably at the end of the day, this is still going to be a podcast that is more on the hardcore end of the spectrum. It is obviously quite long episodes. It's quite in detail, and it's also quite specific. Like, I do talk about crypto and we do talk about different coins and all that, but it is about BCH and it is about going to number one, like hell or high water, nothing else, right? So I like that aspect of it. And I feel like the first episode did actually really express that. And similar to the music video, as time goes on, I think that first episode will just look better and better in hindsight. So I guess you said the group episodes were your first two, so there must be something sneaking in for that third spot that wasn't in that category then, right?
Yeah, so it's kind of a tie, actually, between Joel and I want to say the reason I like that is because I know he's not as heavily involved in Bitcoin Cash. I've seen him since I first got involved in cryptocurrency, and he's always been, as far as I've known him, involved in Dash, and still seeing like the compatibility between why we're involved in cryptocurrency. It's so different just from talking to BTC maximalists. And that I can appreciate so much. And then I think the one that's tied for is the one with I'm going to butcher this either way, Carol Leho, and that meme of the week segment in that episode specifically, I don't think I'll ever forget. That was so good. But it's also interesting, like, he's gone and developed this other coin, and I think they had some of the most valuable, outside perspective for me personally. So, and I mean, with Joel, he was kind of just preaching to the choir, so I can't. It was maybe just narcissistically stroking my ego, but it was a good conversation nonetheless. And yeah, for both of them.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Like, I think, yeah, it is very interesting. Like both of those guys that you mentioned that as guests, they're definitely both part of the BCH community, but there's a spectrum, right? Like, you can be all in on BCH, the one true king of crypto, and like fuck everything else, or you can be sort of more like pragmatic, like both of them are, to some extent. And I think that, and that's fine, and that's definitely a key point about BCH, is that at the end of the day, I think most people in the world will end up using BCH, and maybe it will be a more it will be recognized maybe once again as being like the main game of crypto. But that doesn't mean that, if somebody can be a BCH user, that doesn't exclude them from everything else, which is something we've maintained, unlike BTC, right? Even, the big blocker side, even in the fork wars and stuff, I don't think they were ever that salty about Ethereum or about Litecoin or about other coins, because it was kind of like, well, obviously people, that's decentralization, and there needs to be those options to opt out. If BTC is getting shit, of course people need something else. And I think the community has maintained that. BCH should be the hopefully the primary coin of as many people as we can possibly get it to, but it has to do that by being the best, by competing in the free market and becoming the number one coin that has all the reason, to be involved with, rather than, just as a matter of sort of ideology. So I do agree with you. Okay, that's really interesting there. But I also think it's good that we overlap, that we agree. Episode 35 was one of the crackers too. So yeah, people can check that out. So I wanted to say thank you to all the viewers, obviously, over the 1 year. It's been incredible, and the show isn't worth very much without people listening. I mean, I would probably do it anyway, just because it's a way for me to clear out my own mind and thoughts. But thank you very much if you've been listening, and hope you enjoy it. I've had good feedback recently of people saying they've been enjoying it. And I also was thinking about things to focus on sort of in the second year. So I've got two little points here that are kind of on my radar for things to improve. So number one is to decentralize the content. So I have started it on YouTube, and it's been largely around kind of YouTube, but this year I will be trying to spread out the means that the content is distributed on. I'm sort of increasingly worried about the censorship on YouTube of a number of different topics, and obviously also the increasing sort of reach of like the algorithm. If you get picked by the algorithm, you can rise up, but if the algorithm hates you, you're probably just kind of screwed. So in both of those respects, I think it's smart to spread out a little bit. So there's now a Telegram channel for discussion that I've got. There'll be a link in the description, obviously, that I've opened, and I've got the podcast is now on Odyssey, and I'm going to get some more of the episodes uploaded there, and also going to sort of encourage people to try and migrate across to that by promoting those links instead of the YouTube ones. I mean, I'm obviously not going to take the podcast off of YouTube. That's where it's got the kind of largest viewers at the moment. But hopefully, if you are listening to the show and you are one of those YouTube viewers, maybe just consider switching across to some of these other platforms, and there'll be more of them coming as well too, because essentially the more the better. Just got to decentralize the message. BCH has always had to fight off kind of censorship attacks, so got to learn from that and make sure that we're good on that front. And the other one is to sort of improve some of the audio quality and stuff wherever possible. Like that first episode, that's another reason that looking back at it, it kind of makes me laugh, because like there's this hiss in the background. It's on my laptop microphone. It's in the dark. Like I've been in lockdown. I haven't had a haircut in God knows how long. And it all started out as pretty grungy, which is fine. I like that aspect. It makes me laugh. But I do think that, as time goes on, and definitely to improve the experience, to a larger and larger listener base, we've got to, it's not really like optional, or it's not really, something to sort of ignore. It's just the standard expected. It should be okay. I should be able to make sure I'm, running the show regularly and on time, and we don't have, like we had some audio problems last week, which comes from having different guests and doing, those kind of things. Probably just by taking a bit more time and focus on that, hopefully I can help to minimize some of those things. And I think part of that is because I don't think the content itself has not really been an issue. There's been a lot to talk about every week. That hasn't really been a problem. I haven't really had any great issues with like finding guests or, the show being boring or anything like that. So yeah, I think just some attention to those like technical details could help as well. Do you have any thoughts on that, Jett, or we'll move on?
Well, I do have some thoughts, but I don't want to get anyone's hopes up too much. So we'll see. We'll see how 2022 goes.
Okay, all right. Well, we're not going to promise something we can't deliver. Segue to the next slide. So Kim Dotcom.
Oh, nice.
For listeners of the show who don't know, he is the internet kind of entrepreneur that founded Mega, I think, and then later on Mega Upload, or maybe it was the other way around, and he made a lot of money doing that, allowing people to share files online in the early 2000s. And he's a bit of a character. He's an interesting guy, but he has been essentially targeted by the feds, where he had his house raided by, I don't even know exactly, what letter agencies it was or whatever, but he lives in New Zealand, and he's essentially under like semi-permanent house arrest there, because if he tries to leave the country, then a whole bunch of like legal stuff is going to catch up with him around content that was uploaded to his site that the media owners in Hollywood or whatever mainstream people didn't really agree with, and it's just been this long ongoing saga. So he has been on the front lines of fighting government overreach for a very long time, But one of the stories of 2021 was that he kind of came out and got a bit involved in the BCH scene. He hadn't before that point. He's been aware of crypto and I guess peripherally or quietly involved since about 2012. He heard about it from Roger Ver himself, so pretty good introduction there. But it's only been in the last maybe year and a half, probably not 2 years, that he's been kind of getting involved. And he did try and talk to the Bitcoin BTC side and negotiate with them to try and move the crypto movement forward, but just found that there was a lot of delusion and toxicity there. So he kind of gave up on that and got more in on BCH. So he had very famously last year this debate with these BTC maximalists, which they then later censored and deleted because he basically destroyed their arguments, and they felt ashamed of how childish they were, as well as how poor their arguments were, which I then later reviewed on this show. So that's another episode. That's episode 12, if people are interested in more of the story about that. But he's been hyping up BCH, which is great. I totally support that. I love having him in the scene. But he did announce this platform that he was going to make called K.im, which was going to be like a content monetization sort of platform, supposedly where you could pay in Bitcoin Cash and unlock, a video or whatever kind of PDFs or whatever sort of content you want. And there hasn't really been all that much more detail about that. So at the start of last year, he published this roadmap, which had that it was going to be launching in Q4 of 2021. Now, of course, that time came and the community was a bit like, oh, wow, this might be pretty cool. But he didn't really release it. Instead, he'd already changed his story. That somebody asked him on Twitter, when is this going to be coming out? And he said it's planned for the 10-year anniversary of the raid on his house, 20th of January 2022. So he kind of moved the goalpost there. And then, of course, now today's the 23rd. Well, the 20th has come and gone, and he didn't really deliver. He posted a thread on Twitter where he had a whole bunch of sort of reflections and different things. And he sort of obliquely mentioned this with this tweet where he said, I'm currently working on a Web 3.0 content distribution system that makes it easy for users to access decentralized files using blockchain technology. Kissing face emoji, which he likes to use that a lot. My only crime was that I made 50 million people happy every day, perfectly lawfully. More to come, ... So he didn't even really say specifically like it's called K.im. He didn't give any new info as to when, the new release date would be. He hasn't given us any videos of a prototype, Like I think I've been pretty fair on Kim on this show over the last couple of months. Like there was more and more people saying, okay, he's not going to deliver. It's all vaporware, etc. And I kind of felt like, yeah, I mean, maybe, but I mean, you got to give him a chance to deliver. He missed the first deadline. He missed the second deadline, and now he's not really giving any more updates. So, I mean, it's great if he keeps promoting Bitcoin Cash and everything like that, but I think his credibility is pretty wrecked in terms of delivering projects to the BCH scene. Because, I mean, I work in engineering. I understand stuff doesn't always hit the deadline exactly, but it's just terrible marketing to promise something and then not deliver. Because even if it wasn't ready, it should be like, okay, guys, look, here's a prototype video that we've done, or here's where we expect the next, deadline or update to be. Like, just kind of trying to let it fade off into the mists of time and just be forgotten about is, that's pretty poor form, I think. So, I kind of think at this point, I sort of expect it's never going to arrive. Kind of like the Lightning Network, 18 months away, TM. At least, 7 years later, that did get somewhat delivered. So, I don't know, maybe it'll be the same time frame for this. But, I'll believe it when I see it. And even we had Jamison Lop, who is a big BTC maxi. He was getting his digs in saying when K.im any day now. So, I mean, probably, yeah, Kim's definitely deserving of a bit of critique there. I don't know. Any thoughts on this one, Jett?
I don't know, like, how much I need a platform to easily monetize my own content. Like, so this will be beneficial for a select group of people that probably don't know who Kim Dotcom is, and the people that do know who Kim Dotcom is are nerds and aren't like prolific in their content creation. So I don't know. I honestly haven't followed this too much aside from what I've been exposed to through this show, and I don't really care either, because I'm not going to use it. Like, I never used Patreon. I never used like most of these platforms. So
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, to me, I think the main point is really just that he's kind of shot his credibility, and that the BCH scene is very old school. Like, it doesn't truck with a lot of bullshit. And even right from the start, when it was the very first time when it was announced, months and months ago, there was already people saying like, I'm not getting excited about this. This looks like a lot of hype. Kim has had a questionable track record in some respects. That's where we're going to be at, right? And those people have vindicated today. So there you have it. Well, I mean, yeah, I don't know. Probably won't be much more about Kim Dotcom on this show unless he actually drops a working product that I can try out at this point. But yeah, definitely worth mentioning anyway. All right, next thing. Tesla has begun accepting Dogecoin. So obviously we had on the Christmas episode, we sort of talked about the Elon Musk saga. That's also been a bit of a sub theme to this show. I predicted that the next crypto at Tesla would be Bitcoin Cash and maybe Dogecoin. So I was wrong about Bitcoin Cash. And I'll accept, I'll put my hand up and accept that. Although with the caveat that, I still don't see it as long odds that it could be coming sometime in the future. But Elon has, he tweeted a couple months ago about, maybe I'll accept Doge for Tesla merchandise. And now he's actually gone and done it. So you can buy a Giga Texas belt buckle, a cyber quad for kids, and a cyber whistle for Dogecoin on the Tesla website. The cyber whistle and the cyber quad are both sold out. So I guess this has been fairly popular. When I checked today, nobody wants a Giga Texas belt buckle though, even if they can pay in Dogecoin. But I thought this was pretty cool. I mean, obviously, it does sort of show the use case of cryptocurrency. And even cooler was one thing that he did actually denominate the prices of the goods. So the cyber whistle is 335 Doge. These things you can actually just the price is set in Dogecoin. It's not a fluctuating rate, against the USD, which I thought was, that's super cool. That's exactly what we want. And I'm sure these things got a lot of hype just because initially people will pay in Dogecoin just for the novelty. But Dogecoin fees have been between 15 cents and 50 cents per transaction. So over time, that seems not really too sustainable that people are going to be doing all that much real commerce at 50 cents a pop to buy a cyber whistle. But I think it does also kind of go to the point that clearly other coins can and will be implemented at Tesla, right? If Dogecoin has been put in, critically, BTC has not been put back in. So that was a failure. And just, it's going to be pretty tough sell, I think, to Elon to get that going again when, they tried it and it didn't work. And yeah, Elon remains constantly on the big block hype train, talking about you've got to have low fees. Obviously, technology improves over time. Things were pretty different in 2009 versus today in terms of the hardware. But yeah, he just still won't say the exact words. Bitcoin Cash seem to be mysteriously missing from his dictionary. So I still, not sure what that's about. Maybe as more and more discussion goes on as time passes and BTC really just continues to fade out of being the main game. Michael Saylor even today was talking about Litecoin and various other coins. He's still sticking to, but it'll all end up in Bitcoin. But giving it more credence than he has in the past to alternative options. So as that social expectation dies down that it is going to be BTC and only BTC in certain circles, maybe Elon will just come out banging one day and say Bitcoin Cash is the real Bitcoin. He won't do that, but maybe he'll say Bitcoin Cash worth a try or something. I don't know. Any thoughts on this latest from Elon?
The belt buckle looks stupid as fuck.
Who
Who wears belt buckles anymore? That being said, for kids or not, I'd buy that cyber quad if I had a Dogecoin. Like, that sounds dope. Like, hell yeah.
Yeah, get on some, like, I always think of quad bikes as being like on sand dunes. I don't know why, but I guess you can race them around anywhere, just on the street or in the park or whatever. But I always just have visions of like kind of Dune-esque, set up on Arrakis, with they don't really have quad bikes, but that's sort of what it makes me think of.
Here on the east coast of Canada, they call them four-wheelers because we're basic.
Four-wheelers. I don't know, bicycle, tricycle, quadcycle.
People mostly go through like wood cutting trails and stuff around here. So,
but a car is also a four-wheeler, right? So that's kind of confusing. But I don't know, like, yeah, the old four-wheelers. All right, good four-wheelers in Canada.
Unless you're in Alberta, then they're quads.
Okay, all right. Alberta is the superior Canadian linguists. All right, good. Now I'll know when I go there to translate. Well, actually, probably not going to be going to Canada anytime soon. But
so yeah. Here's, like, on a serious note here. If they are going to accept other cryptocurrencies, I think they might need to. Well, I think they would make the attempt to denominate it on some mutually backed, or not backed, but like something like the US dollar, because it's liquid between all of these different pairs at that point. And you could still show the denomination in their respective coins, but I think it would make it easier for the developers running the e-commerce side of things, right? So I partially think Elon's just doing this as a meme, but if he is interested in other cryptocurrencies, I think it would be probably, denominated in the US dollar on the back end at least.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, as much as I love to see it, that, oh, okay, wow, he denominated it in Doge, which is, pretty authentic, pretty, to the point that, okay, you could just have a non-fiat economy. At the same time, I agree. I think it also indicates that he's not super serious about whether or not this was actually a profitable or worthwhile commercial endeavor. It's more like
marketing
for the lulz, because if Dogecoin has crashed off massively, which it now subsequently has, it did spike on this news and is now down with everything else, then it just sort of like goes to show. And I mean, it's pretty low risk as well. I guess it's fairly low risk that this is just on this like merchandise store, but it was only a couple things. There are more, a bunch of different stuff on this shop that you also can't buy in Dogecoin. And obviously you can't buy an actual Tesla car in Dogecoin either. So it's already kind of a bit sidelined from where it was at in terms of the BTC adoption, which then also kind of went into reverse, So yeah, I think that kind of just goes to show where he's at. But we'll see in 2022, maybe we'll be on the 2022 Christmas episode saying, wow, Elon really came out big with crypto this year. Or maybe it'll be he'll be busy, fighting on some other front. We won't hear about him for a while. I'm sure he'll find a way to stick his, foot in in it somehow.
I do hope at some point he does start using Bitcoin Cash, because then I can be like, see, I was right. Like, we need people to use BTC and try all these other coins because it funnels them down. And I haven't seen an example of that aside from the other B cashers, like the older ones, I guess, or the ones that have been here longer. But I think we need someone who's coin agnostic to be like, I tried your shit. It's shit. I
It's
like this
shit.
one. I like this coin. Like,
I like the coin.
yeah.
2022, the year of liking the coin. Yeah, I definitely agree. You know, I think, yeah, and that's kind of it. And that's what I was saying at the start about. I think BCH should be the primary coin, but it's got to win on its merits, right? And that doesn't mean to say people shouldn't try other coins. They should try other coins, and then they should try BCH, and then hopefully they find, wait, BCH is better, because nothing teaches, you know, faster. I love that saying, you know, experience teaches harshly, but it teaches best. Like, that's the truth. People just, when you've tried it yourself, you don't. It's so hard to get any propaganda when it directly contradicts your own experience, basically.
I was watching something like 2 days ago. I think this was Letterkenny, to be honest. Canadian show, hilarious, recommended.
I have seen Letterkenny once before, I think.
Yeah, and there was just a quote, like, I can't remember if it was, I think it was Letterkenny, and he says, pain is nature's greatest teacher, or something like that. And it's like, go have fun on Ethereum. The pain of those fees will teach you so much.
Yeah, exactly. You know, and it also comes to that Ayn Rand quote, which I like a lot, which is just, you can ignore reality, but you can't ignore the consequences of ignoring reality. And that's the exact same thing, which is like, Bitcoin people, BTC people, or ETH people can claim all they want that everything's hunky-dory and it's fine. But the reality is that new people are showing up and just routing around it into BCH, into other currencies, or, you know, finding their own way in this. Like, recently there was some news about NFTs has now surpassed crypto as like the most Googled term, you know, and it's just the exact same thing. Crypto had its shot a bit, and now it's going to have to get in there the back door, because people are just more excited about NFTs because BTC screwed up and we set back the whole actual currency part of it such a long way, and it's going to have to sort of emerge from within instead, you know. All right, cool. So then we got on the next slide here, and this is a bit of a lead in to our discussion of how to survive a bear market. Obviously, I'm very, you know, predicting a bear market and everything like that, but it's kind of worst case scenario planning, right? If it goes better than expected, then that's fine. You know, everybody will be super overjoyed, so there'll be no sweat about it. But as a kind of interlude, you know, prologue to that, I've got a slide here called Timeline to Flip BTC. So Bitcoin Cash for everyone at White Rabbit RC2. I think I'm struggling to read that.
White Rabbit CC2.
White Rabbit CC2, right, on Twitter said, when do you believe Bitcoin Cash will flip BTC in market cap? Which has obviously been the vision since day one of the split, and, you know, still, like, it was on episode 1 of this show, right? That's the first step, is to just take out BTC, probably the first and biggest step too. And there was about 228 votes, so non-insignificant sample size, said 2022 to 2025, which was option 1, got 44.3% of the votes. The second option, 2026 to 2030, which is the one I voted for, got 30.7% of the vote, and 2031 plus got 25% of the vote. So almost nearly a half by 2025, like close to a third by 2030, and then the quarter by, you know, sometime after 2031. And the reason I wanted to put this in is that, well, 2 reasons. One is that the BCH community thinks on long time frames, right? That was it was never in doubt at the time of the split from BTC that it was going to be a rough choice. It was going to be a hard thing to do, and that it was going to cost a lot to try and, fight over the brand name, either in the short or the long term. But the community did it anyway, because they could already see, you know, on this idea of following it to the global reserve currency. People didn't say it like that at that time, but the whole point of Bitcoin was to be the currency that everyone else in the world used. And even at, in 2017, people could see, look, if we go down this road, it's not going to work, even if it takes 4 or 5 years, or it's not already working now. The fees are already that high, but in the future it will even get even less tenable. So they're kind of happy to take some short-term pain, which will be similar to what we'll talk about with the bear market. And I like that. The BTC crowd are always going on and on about time preference, that who has the highest time preference, that they're so smart because they're stacking Bitcoins for the future while everybody else is, on payday loans or whatever. But the fact is, the BCH community has a far longer time preference than the BTC community, because they're prepared to keep fighting and keep looking to the end game of every single person in the world using Bitcoin Cash. And I think this poll just kind of shows that. I mean, a quarter of people went for later than 2031, and presumably they're already still fired up about BCH today. They're already 8, 9, 10 years away from that, and still I'm thinking about that. 2030, where is BCH going to be? I think, maybe it won't take as long, because things change gradually, then suddenly, and I can sort of see the narrative kind of crumbling away. And then as the real economy sort of builds up in BCH, that there will be a tipping point where once it's past that point, it will only be 18 months maybe from some certain point, like let's say things carried on for another 2 years, and then in 2024 Elon said, wait, Bitcoin Cash is, I've seen the light, that's the best. Then I think at that point there would be enough kind of grassroots stuff combined with a sudden bit of hype that it would just absolutely kick off. Or Smart BCH could be the same if all these different EVM chains that are kind of going along, like Solana is down at the moment, or it was this week. Like if all the money that flooded into Solana or into Avalanche or any of those other coins, if it just decides Smart BCH is the next one, that could also be kind of a triggering flashpoint for it to just absolutely surge and start crushing it. But I was actually kind of amazed that nearly half people thought before the end of 2025. Like, that's a fairly short time frame. That's in the next 4 years. It's still the start of 2022. I don't know, did you have any take on this? What would you have voted for?
2031 plus. I think well, here's the thing. I'm open to the idea that it could happen sooner, but I don't think it would be in a good way. I don't think it would be organic adoption. It would be regulators coming after NFTs, coming after things like Decentraland, things like Ethereum and all its clones, and Smart BCH would be a target in that. And then it would just be like we'd have the top 5 that we had in 2017, where it was BTC, Ethereum, BCH, Litecoin. I can't even remember what the other one, maybe XMR?
Tether or something. Yeah. Ripple, yeah.
Actually, I think XMR has always been kind of down there. Oh yeah, XRP.
Yeah.
XRP was definitely blowing up at the time. So I'd say 2031 plus, but I didn't vote on this, so my voice doesn't count here.
No, it really counts. In this show, it's just interesting to see. Like, I'm in two minds about this, right? If this many people think that BCH is going to just wreck BTC by the end of 2025, is that a wisdom of the crowds thing? Is there actually a strong sense for that, or is it just people are excited and people are fired up, and they can at the very least they can see something, something is giving them that confidence, whether it's the I don't know, launch of Smart BCH or increasing adoption in St. Kitts and Nevis. I want to talk about that as well, maybe on the show next week, or in the Philippines, or they can see that the narrative has changed and BTC are no longer kind of in control. What's giving people all this confidence?
I mean, there was way more confidence when the split first happened, man. People, like, I remember being on a certain Mongolian basket weaving forums, and them being like having a dozen threads about how BCH was gonna flip BTC, and like people were like hyped about that. And now if you see someone mention BCH, it's like they get shit on pretty quickly. So I think a lot of the flippening hype recently has been from people who maybe get introduced through Smart BCH and then read a little bit and they're like, oh shit, this is definitely still a possibility. But I think it's short-sighted to even really think about it that much right now.
Yeah, well, I mean, definitely, whether it's going to, be soonish or not, definitely, as a community, we need to just sort of knuckle down and yeah, just keep working. We just need to outwork them, basically.
Yeah.
Even though we're, smaller right now, and this is a point I really wanted to highlight, is that setting aside the price, setting aside everything else, Bitcoin Cash, despite having had a very rough period between 2017 and 2021 and the start of 2021 with the two forks, I think it had a really good 2021, as I've said before. Despite that 4 years of, you could say almost like lost time, or the fact that it had, it was busy sorting out its own governance and its own sort of decentralized control sort of structure and stuff like that. In that time, despite that, it is uniquely the beneficiary of the massive amount of work that has gone into Bitcoin mining. Obviously, in all that time, people were still building bigger mining farms and fighting for regulation and trying to get, green energy in there, and all that money and time and energy that went into that, as well as all the stuff that went on with Ethereum and building the EVM and all the other smart chains and all the, decentralized exchanges and all the code that was written, all the infrastructure that was built there, all the community development that happened around those tools. Bitcoin Cash has both of those things, even though it hasn't been really directly involved. It has benefited with this EVM chains. Okay, now we're just copying that stuff across into Smart BCH, and that's seen as growing super fast as a result, because it's already starting with 90% of the way there. And then obviously the liquidity in the community is the sort of catch. That's the hard bit to build, but all of that work and stuff, everything that was done there is already benefiting. And the same with the mining, which is that if BCH, or when BCH starts rising in price, it won't need to do anything extra to just suck up all the hash power and all the interest from the miners and all their setups that they've done, all that, migrating around to escape China, which banned things, and, whatever work they're doing to keep themselves sorted. BCH can just grab that up as thanks for that 4 or 5 years of work anytime, So in that sense, I think if flippening is maybe, closer than people would expect. So yeah, I voted 2026 to 2030, and I think, yeah, maybe 2026, maybe 2027, that kind of range is where I see. But interesting that you think, all right, well, we got to be still running this show then in 10 years, because that'll be hype as hell when we get there. All right,
sorry.
Yeah, go on.
Real quickly, I think we're going to have a long period where people are absolutely disgusted by crypto. And actually, we've seen kind of a rise of that because of NFTs and people being, I don't know, I think falsely concerned about the environment, but that's my own bullshit. So, yeah. I mean, I've seen so many, this is Twitter too, so, other people's mental illness doesn't quite dictate reality, but I've seen so many threads about how NFTs and cryptocurrency and cutting things up into small little pieces in the internet that can be owned is a bad thing. And I mean, people have talked about it since the start of Bitcoin, but there definitely seems to be a vocal uproar. And I don't think they're the minority. I think crypto bros are still the minority, right? So we'll see what happens.
Well, yeah, but I mean, in one respect, it is just the latest FUD. It is just the latest, oh, it's only used for criminal activity. It's only used for drugs. It's only, what are the other?
It's only used for
Bitcoin? No one uses it. Yeah. The deflationary currency can't work. I can't remember whatever all the other arguments, but obviously there's been so many stupid arguments against Bitcoin that have all just sort of fallen apart. It sounds to me like what you're describing is the fact that crypto is now big enough, like as the pool of crypto adopters gets bigger, the pool of people who are like adjacent enough to it that they can't ignore it also gets bigger, right?
That's fair.
And we're kind of getting to that point, right? Like in the past, anybody who hated Bitcoin was like, I hate Bitcoin, and then they forgot about it, and then that was fine for the next like 3 years. But now, if you people are talking about Bitcoin all the time, crypto is on. We've been done those episodes talking about South Park and stuff like that. If you hate crypto, you can be spouting off about it constantly because there's constantly stuff to spout off about, and people are interested and will listen and are very engaged with it, right? And it sounds more like these criticisms have kind of come down to basically, I mean, it's always been this way, but this is the biggest round of I don't like it, as opposed to there's something wrong with it.
I think part of that too is like the Jake Pauls being like, here's my latest NFT drop. And their kid, like the fans of those people being 13, 14-year-olds with their parents' credit cards. And I feel bad for them, but pain is nature's teacher.
Full circle.
Yeah.
Full circle. Those 14-year-olds will all get scammed. But the funny thing about crypto is people get scammed, and by and large, they still love crypto. Even if, I think that's one of the most underrated things about cryptos. Okay, there's a lot of scams. Yes, there's a lot of problems. Okay, there's a lot of bad actors. All of that is true. But despite that, people like lose their private keys or they get scammed or whatever, and they don't think fuck crypto, like this is the worst thing in the world. Actually, they think I screwed up. I didn't know what I was doing. Like I got taken advantage of, but kind of I needed to learn those lessons. Like I'm an idiot. They don't know. Well, with mostly, I would guess, and I don't have any data to back this up, people don't actually blame crypto when they have problems with crypto. Largely they blame themselves. And there's even stats that go to like back that up in terms of in general customer support. I know that tech companies have done research which shows that like 75% of customers or something want to be able to solve a problem themselves, or they try and figure it out themselves before they ring the customer support line. If you have a problem with an app, you think, oh, can I turn it off and on again? Is my settings all good? You try and do those things, or most people do, before they kind of go to someone else and say, please help.
Yeah.
And if they can solve it that way, then that's the ideal scenario. So as a tech company, you are supposed to be trying to, give people links to what could I do differently? Is this a problem? Check this, try this, etc. And crypto is the exact same. So I think people, once they have a problem with crypto, that's when they realize I'm an idiot, and they read up on it. And then as that education level rises, they have less problems. And then they can also spread that education to other people. And so it just becomes a rising tide, even as there is a lot of like scams and problems, basically.
And that's not even including the people that pretend like they have some problems with crypto so they don't have to pay taxes on shit. Right? The boating accident thing.
That one too. All right. So speaking of all that, then let's just go on. So I've got a slide here called Bear Market Survival Guide with a pretty funny picture of a bear like waving that I found on Google or on DuckDuckGo. I've switched over to DuckDuckGo now. That I thought was pretty funny. But basically, obviously, my my premise for this show is that in the long run, crypto is going to crush it. But in the short term, as I've been saying, I think, we're basically in what's called a crypto winter, which is, the next 3 or 4 years, maybe, let's say, maybe even like 2 years. I don't know if somehow things got shaken up a lot. The price is basically just going to slowly grind down. And a lot of coins are going to just get washed completely out of the market. So even though BCH has been dropping down the market rankings, it's kind of the opposite to the hype cycle, right? When everything is hype, a lot of coins shoot past BCH because they got flashy marketing and everyone thinks, wow, this is the future. But then the opposite happens when the hype dies away. A lot of those coins also die out. People sell out. They realize it was all hype, and BCH rises up either because the community is still just quietly plugging away, or because those other coins fall back kind of past it. So but we are probably going to go into a bear market, I think. And like I said, if we don't, then great, you don't need any of this advice and everyone will be rich and happy. So I've got here a list of things that I think, lessons that I've learned and things that I can speak to from my own experience. This is not financial advice. It's just my experience, lessons I've learned that other people might find helpful to them, right? So let's start from the beginning. So the first thing is, if you're panicking, right? Like the other day, we just had a huge crash, 25%. Oh no, it's easy to wake up. All people are putting on Twitter like, oh, don't check the markets. Oh, I feel terrible, blah, 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 blah. If you're panicking like that, here's a few things you could think about. The first thing is to just reduce your allocation, right? Like if you have too much money in crypto and it's going down is a big problem, or it does stress you out, just sell some, put it back in your, British pounds or your USD or your wherever you want to put it, just do it. And in that way, like that should just fix the problem right there, right? If you had $1 in Bitcoin Cash, you probably wouldn't be too stressed about whether the price was going up or down all that much, right? So essentially, if you've got too much money in it and you can't handle and it's just stressing you out, just that's the simplest and quickest and most effective thing is just sell some. Of course, you will then potentially regret that quite heavily when it later goes up. But the point is, it's not worth your mental health, right? And you're not going to be doing fine if you're just trying to constantly battle with yourself, stressed about whether the crypto market's up or down, particularly for people who end up watching the price a lot. And obviously some people, watch it more than others or whatever, right? So that's the absolute number one piece of advice. If you're stressing out, that's an indication that you've got too much invested and you should sell out. Okay. But number two is be aware of anchor bias. So people have a need to attach themselves. It's also called similar like recency bias. People attach themselves to what's happening right now. In basketball, it's called the hot hand fallacy, right? So if the price is $500 and it goes down to $350, that feels horrible. But if it goes up to $400, then it feels great, because in your mind you think, well, it was $350 and now it's $400. Gosh, $400, it's killing it. But if the price is $500 and it just goes to $400, it doesn't go to $350, then you feel like, wow, gosh, $400, it's crashing, it's all over, it's terrible, right? So the price is the same, whether it's $400, no matter how it got there. But the way it got there impacts how you think about, oh, wow, this number is a good or a bad number. And if the price goes up a lot or down a lot and then stays at that number for a while, in your brain, you will start to think of that as the normal price and then judge, price moves up or down like relative to that, right? So I think that's something that people should really try and kind of keep in mind when they're like, once you're aware of that process, you'll notice it in yourself and it will become easier to handle the price fluctuations. Okay, number 3 for my tips is to visualize the printing of fiat currency. So this one's kind of a quick helper, right? This is not going to change your life or anything. Not like selling out is a more permanent move. But if you're just having a particular moment or a day where you're like, oh God, crypto's getting wrecked, this can really help, which is this. I just think about those videos, you see on a documentary about the Federal Reserve or whatever, with the sheets of money getting printed out, like ka-chunk, like thousands of these dollars just getting printed out. And that is happening 24/7. I mean, obviously, most of it isn't even physical. It's mostly just numbers getting typed into a computer. But having that visualization of the money just flowing out of the printer 24/7 really helps to remember why fiat currency is so pointless and useless, basically. Because then I just think, okay, well, I have my BCH. I mean, I could sell some, but I'm selling it for some pounds, which are also just getting printed out of the printer at like light speed at the moment. that's obviously a bad move. And that makes it a lot easier to sort of not be worried about the price. I mean, if you sell out, like what else am I going to buy with my BCH? I could buy fiat currency. Okay, well, that's constantly devaluing. I could buy gold or precious metals. Yeah, well, that's kind of like the worst version of cryptocurrency. So that's not a go. Could buy stocks, but they're also just going up in fiat terms because of all the money printing. And I definitely don't have the time to research enough into which stocks to know which ones were the good picks. So I don't know, that really helps me. And then one more, and then I'll give Jett a chance to get in here. But tip number 4, again, these 4 tips for if you're panicking: reduce your allocation, be aware of the anchor bias, think about fiat currency printing, and the 4th is just take a break. Like just switch off and just detach, just live a bit of life, right? Like crypto is largely an online kind of thing for a lot of people, where it's all just numbers on a screen going up and down. And if you're watching your phone or you've got alerts set up or whatever you're doing, if it's stressing you out, just like put it down, go outside, go for a run, go have a drink at the bar with a mate or something. Like, it doesn't really matter what, just switching it around a little bit kind of can also make you feel better, just because you come back tomorrow or a week later or even a month later or even a year later. Crypto, that's the other great thing about crypto. It has zero storage cost. So you can always just leave it be, do something completely different. And then just when you come back to crypto, it'll be kicking off more than it was when you left it. That's pretty much assured, right? So that's all you kind of have to do. Anyway, Jett, any thoughts on this? What do you do to handle this sort of volatility?
I think it's actually like I have way less steps. First off, I think if you're panicked at all, you fucked up already. Like, prepare for the worst, prepare for it to go to zero, don't spend any more than you can afford to lose. Like, I've been, hearing this since I got into crypto. If you still, but also if you quit your job and lived off of crypto savings and you didn't even have income in crypto, then that's another fuck up on your end. Like, if you have income, savings, or a little volatility in your, well, maybe even a lot of volatility in your savings, isn't that big of a deal. And maybe I'm being biased because Bcasher, but I'm looking at 10 years, right? Like, I don't give a shit about a 2-day 25% dip. So yeah, get a job. Don't spend more than you can afford to lose, and go touch grass. Like, yeah, it is just online. Like, and stop looking at the charts. I think that's a big one. It feeds people's neuroticism. That's about it.
Yeah, no, that's exactly it. Omar says in the chat, don't leave more money in fiat than you can afford to lose. I agree with that, actually. But for the sake of, for the sake of the audience, for people who are not maybe as that far down the crypto rabbit hole, if you are newer to it and it is stressing you out, even if obviously your fiat is devaluing, but it does it kind of slower, although at an increasing rate recently, but it does do it, slower, and it's more predictable. And also you have more connection to that economy, probably because you're, buying your groceries or whatever every week with your fiat currency, so you can see like what's going on, right? Where you maybe don't have that connection to the BCH economy. So we'll come back to that. But so those were my tips for being panicked. And then, like you said, prevention is better than cure. So what you want to do for a general mindset or general strategy is to think, like I was talking about with those, like we said on the previous slide about 2032. Think about it on a 5 to a 10 year type of time scale, which is that BCH is not really an investment. It's a currency, kind of like I was talking about last week with sovereign none. Just think of it like a currency, not like an investment. That's a big difference between BCH and BTC as well, not coincidentally. But if you think of it like a currency, it becomes less of an issue because you're not expecting it to be an investment. But obviously, that's not realistic. Some people will still want to sort of invest in BCH. And if they're doing that, then, you've got to commit to it knowing that it's going to be 5 or 10 years before it either works out or it doesn't, right? The volatility in the meantime is just kind of the natural way the market always is. So once you're thinking about it like on a 10-year time frame, then you can start dollar cost averaging, right? You don't know what the price is going to be this week, next month, next year. You don't know, right? But you're betting over 10 years it'll be pretty good. So if you just buy, once every month, for instance, you get a portion of, the funds or whatever that you're going to allocate, and you plan it out, okay, over 10 years, I'm going to, drip feed it in 0.5% every month or something like that. Then you just do it like that. And you can even double down on that. I think might help some people. It helps me is you can have a regular dollar cost averaging so that over time you will get to sort of a fair market value of what you bought. But on top of that, you can also just set aside a little bit of extra money, which you call buy the crash. I don't know, people always say buy the dip, but I think it's more like buy the crash. You set aside some sneaky extra money in a little savings account or whatever. And when the price really struggles, like this week, when it drops massively, when everybody's really concerned with it, then you take some money out of that and you buy a bit extra, because obviously then you're getting in at the cheap prices. But the fact of having set that plan up beforehand and having put the, set the money aside and all that means that when that happens, you'll start to feel panicked and then think, wait, no, I knew this was coming. And that's exactly what I already planned. And now I can buy some at a cheaper price than I was already thrilled about last week. So I think that can help people as well too. Dollar cost averaging and buy the crash type of fund. One thing that has never worked for me, so I don't recommend it to anybody, is to try and trade your way back into profit, right? As the price is volatile, people get more worked up, obviously, and they see there's a lot of volatility. Oh, wow, maybe I can make back my money by trading. If I just sell it now and then I buy it back in, when it's crashed and it's lower, or if I go on some exchange, it's definitely going down. I'll just leverage it up 5x and I'll just make back all my money or whatever. That's probably not going to work, right? And there's two very good reasons to that. So the first reason is internal, which is that you're already stressed, you're already emotional, you're not necessarily going to be thinking as rationally as you would under other circumstances. So it's already a bad time to be trading. And the second thing is that you are probably not a trader unless you are a hedge fund, trader professional in your full-time job, in which case you probably got more than enough of that in your system. Then you realize you're just competing against bots that are programmed perfectly rationally to, exploit fluctuations in the market, or you are trading against experts, right? And it's just like, why would you get in the ring with Mike Tyson? Like, there's no need to just try punching above your weight. You're going to get wrecked every single time. It's just the facts. So recognize that and don't try and trade your way back into profit. And then one other thing that can really help as a sort of a longer term strategy is to look at things that are not the price in terms of assessing how your investment or how the economy of BCH is going, which is the price can go up or down and it can be a nightmare or not. But I think it's really important, and that's one of the reasons that I started this podcast, is that it provides a better signal for if the economy of BCH is doing well or not, right? So I have even created a page to make this for my own use. I use this page, but everybody else can check it out too. If you go to www.bitcoincashpodcast.com/stats, I update. I'm now doing it once every month. I did it yesterday or this morning. I put up the stats of how the podcast is doing. I put up how many YouTube subs it's got, how many Twitter subs it's got, how many Telegram people are chatting about it, right? And on top of that, I also put the page views for that site, bitcoincashpodcast.com. And I also put the audio downloads for the podcast as well too. All that information is there. And on top of that is links to other places that you can find stats about Bitcoin Cash and, you know, real economic usage or whatever. And so if you take a look at that page, you can see whether or not the actual economy, the actual interest is growing regardless of the sort of the price, right? So I do recommend looking at those things. And one other thing that I do also track, which I think is really good, is the subscribers at reddit.com/r/BTC, which is the sort of traditional stronghold of the, you know, Bitcoin Cash discussion. And right now that's up to nearly 775,000 subscribers, which is insane, because our Bitcoin, the sort of main subreddit, which the BTC side have control of, they have like 3.8, like, so, you know, roughly coming up to 4 million subscribers. So BCH is about, you know, 15 to 20% of that size, and yet the price is, you know, less than 1%, right? So, and the numbers recently been rocketing up as well too. A lot of people have been subscribing to that subreddit. So that's another thing that you can just look at and see, yeah, given 5 or 10 years for all this increased interest to play out, it kind of seems a no-brainer that the community is doing fine, and that should also panic you less about the price. I don't know. Do you want to get in here, Jett, or do you want me to go on with this next section of advice? Not advice.
No, I think I'm good. I do think it's interesting that BTC is increasing, because like I found the quality of the posts over the past couple months to be decreasing, and I completely left Reddit. So
yeah, there's a lot of bot spam on that subreddit, by the way. People should follow. You know, if you're gonna go get in the mix on RBDC, then do it. But I recommend that you download. There's a plugin called Reddit Enhancement Suite, RES, and what it lets you do is it tracks when you upvote or downvote different users, and you can also tag them as well with like a custom thing that just only shows to you. It doesn't impact anything else. And so in that way, you can, if you use the subreddit for a couple of weeks, you'll start to see patterns of like, wait a second, this guy, I've got like 50 green upvotes on this guy. That's obviously like a real person. And then you'll see some which is like 10, you know, negative red downvotes, and you'll see, okay, this is like either somebody who's just there to cause grief, or it's a bot, basically. Because the community is so pro free speech, it does have like a lot of sort of bots and shills that in other communities would just get banned. But that's how our Bitcoin does it. So our BTC is trying to sort of stand apart. So yeah, I think the other thing as well to do is use the old Reddit layout. You can go to old.reddit.com. Let me just check that. I'm pretty sure that's the domain. Yeah, if you go to old.reddit.com, it gives you the original layout, which is about 1,000 times easier to read and understand what's going on, rather than going to the the new updated one, which sucks and it's so confusing. So use old.reddit.com and use Reddit Enhancement Suite, and our BTC will be a lot more comprehensible as to what's going on. Yeah, just some tips there. Right. So then the third thing, so we talked about what about if you're panicked? We talked about having a long-term mindset and all that. And then the most directly actionable points immediately is to try and participate in the economy. Try and be a part of the BCH community and economy. It doesn't have to be, you know, as severe as this podcast, doing it every week and being really involved. It's really just about you know, finding a small way to be involved. So ask your job if they can give you 5% of their salary in BCH, and maybe that will take you a little while to organize, right? But you could do that. And then once you do that, go on noise.cash, have a look at a few of the posts, find somebody who's like, oh, well, that's a pretty good point. And then send them $2 in BCH. And just in those two little actions there, you've earned some Bitcoin Cash, and then you've spent some Bitcoin Cash. And in doing that, you will be much more convinced that it's a working currency. And then also you'll start to think a little bit in terms of how many BCH did I earn? You'll start thinking I earned $10 of BCH and I spent $2. But as you do that more and more, you'll start thinking, oh, I earned 20 milli Bitcoin cash and I spent 3.5, milli Bitcoin cash. And once that loop starts to form in your mind, you'll start to become less worried about the price in USD or in any other currency, because you'll start accounting mentally to yourself as to what you earned in BCH and what you spent in BCH. And that's also kind of, as soon as you're earning in BCH, you have a natural form of dollar cost averaging, which is, when the price is going down, you'll probably likely earn more units of BCH. So if you have your salary or whatever is fixed in fiat, but then the BCH rate will fluctuate, right? So you'll either earn more or less. And then once you start doing that, you're already doing the dollar cost averaging that I was talking about before, naturally. And so, yeah, like me telling you on this podcast that the economy is growing, or that on a 10-year time frame, or that it's a great currency, none of those things are necessarily going to be that convincing to you. I can talk till I'm blue in the face. Ultimately, your experience will be much more reassuring to you that I'm not just making this up than anything else. So be sort of involved in those simple ways. I mean, there's other things you can do as well. Try out Smart BCH, put some coins on there, look up the YouTube videos and learn a bit about that, or go to a meetup, meet some real people that about crypto or about BCH. And once you're talking to those people, you discover, yeah, they're having the same problems with volatility as me, but there's a real thing. It's not all just names on a screen, Go on. Do you have something to say?
Oh, no, it didn't.
Nope.
I was closing
Okay,
some
all right.
chapstick. It might have gotten picked up.
Okay. All right. So yeah, that's it. And then obviously, if you're going to be the really hardcore mode, start a community project, right? Like sort of similar to this podcast, but it can be, whatever. You can make some content, or you can go out and get some businesses to adopt, Bitcoin Cash. You can talk to your local grocery store that you buy from every week and say, hey, will you guys accept Bitcoin Cash, and show them how to download a wallet and send them a little bit of money and convince them, and then go there and spend it every week. You can be as proactive as suits your kind of lifestyle and options. That's the whole point. It's just decentralized. You just do whatever you want, but that will also help you to be reassured definitely that this is a real thing, and it's not just some fanciful internet bullshit that is going to vanish tomorrow. So yeah, I'll just run through those all once more again. But they're on the slides, so if anybody needs to refer back to them, they're all there. If you're panicked, cut down your allocation. Think about your anchor bias. Think about fiat money getting printed. Take a break if you need to. Think about things over the 10-year time frame. Dollar cost average in. Buy a crash fund. Don't do trading. Look at the real growth, and then get involved. And the more involved you are, the more clear it'll be. So that is all of my hard-won experiential advice. And I think if anybody listening applies those ideas over the next 5 years, you'll be fine, and you'll handle crypto volatility no problem. So at the end of this, we're just gonna there's a good bit of news to end all of this very negative sounding ways to avoid getting stressed out and whatever, which is that the BCH is actually pretty strong. Like I was saying before, in a bear market, it's got a very, very hardcore community. It was not started by a bunch of VC investors that are holding 95% of the supply and can just sell it all out and just crash you into oblivion. And now we have Smart BCH burning coins as well too. So as that grows in popularity, it also helps to support the price via a sort of indirect airdrop to everyone else. That's now burned more than 200 coins I saw today. So for all of those reasons, a lot of the other currencies are going to massively struggle, right? If we do go into a full-on winter like they're already, BCH is crashing and they're all crashing, but BCH hits a floor at a certain point because people actually need it. People actually use it. This is a real community. And if you go and you look at some of the other communities, you'll discover they don't have a subreddit with 700,000 subs. They probably, a lot of them don't have a podcast dedicated to covering exactly what's going on in that community. A lot of them don't have, well, almost all of them, except for, the other Bitcoin communities, haven't been around for 13 years and survived, problem after problem after problem. Some of the big ones this doesn't apply to, right? Like Ethereum, that's pretty solid. That's probably not going anywhere. But loads of the other ones that everybody is hyped and excited about, they're just air, and anybody can do a bit of investigation of those communities and find that out. There's been a lot of price hype, or a lot of like, this is the newest, greatest tech, which is going to be the greatest thing. But as you dig into it and you try and, use those apps or find out, what's going on the community message boards or something, if the price starts dropping, those things will dry up and dry up kind of fast. And especially for coins that have had a huge amount of VC investor money, that's the same as any other like tech boom. All the money piles in, everybody feels like they're a genius, because even it doesn't matter what you're doing, it's going to be working if money is just being shoveled into the fire. But as soon as the things take a bit of a downturn, well, then suddenly it's not so easy, and all that misallocated capital comes back to bite because it starts to dry up,
Yeah. Oh, you're muted.
No further points on that?
Nope.
Okay. All right. So that's it. And I don't know. I'm glad I've done this, because this has been on my mind for a while, and now seems like a pretty great time to do it. So that's the bear market survival guide. Good luck. All right. So we got community comment of the week. And both community comment and meme of the week are sort of adding to this theme. So comes from @DavidShattuck8, David Shattuck, shout out, who posted on Twitter, want to know which crypto communities are trying to change the world and which are just gambling in the crypto casino to get more fiat? Simply look how they respond to market crashes. /r/BTC, no one cares. /r/cryptocurrency, panic. And that's exactly what it is. You can go on the cryptocurrency subreddit right now. All the top 25 posts are people complaining about the price, either directly or indirectly, or reassuring each other that it's going to be fine, or it's like a bunch of headless chickens, right? That's just what everybody is doing and saying. But our BTC, there's maybe like one post, if that, and it kind of gets downvoted because everybody's like, God, we just don't care,
Yeah.
Can we actually focus on? That's why it's important. Following it on its rise to global reserve currency. It's about the mission. It's about peer-to-peer cash. It's about creating a new economy. It's not about getting rich, being a Ponzi schemer like BTC. So
I didn't know that the price had dipped. Like, I turned off most of my phone notifications, and somehow Bitcoin.com wallet one snapped through, and that kind of surprised me. I was like, oh, goddamn, we're down 24% the last I checked. But then this morning I was like, well, I'm off exchanges, so opening up a couple Telegram groups. Who wants to sell me some Bitcoin Cash?
Yeah, exactly. A great time to earn. People would make a sort of meme about earn the dip. That's exactly what it should. You shouldn't be buying the dip. Should, as much as possible, be trying to earn the dip. When the price is down, great time to be earning money in Bitcoin Cash, like I was talking about before, with getting a little bit of your salary, whatever, allocated there. Okay, and then we got meme of the week. So this one comes from Blockworks. This isn't even like really technically a meme so much, but I thought it could kind of fit in here. And I have my own beef with Blockworks because they're pretty Bitcoin maxi, to be honest. But they do have some good posts. So this was one of them. It's times Bitcoin died according to the media. So they've got a list of them all here. So 2010, it was once, because nobody even knew about Bitcoin. But it was funny that it was already getting on the radar of it's dead. 2011, 6 times. 2012, once. 2013, 17 times. 14, 29 times. 15, 39 times. 16, 28 times. 17, 124 times. So that just goes to show you, like, after the bubble peaked and after it crashed, but it also had a lot of interest, 124 articles or whatever that they had of Bitcoin's dead. 2018, 93 times. 2019, 41 times. 2020, 14 times. And 2021 times, 47 times. They've CC'd 99 Bitcoins, HQ.com, who are the ones who have the obituaries panel where you can go and read them. If you just type in Bitcoin obituaries 99 Bitcoins, you'll find the site, and you can read. They have this incredible archive of now, hundreds of articles. Bitcoin's dead. This has killed Bitcoin. It's all over. Everybody's sold. It's never coming. That's really what we're talking about with the long-term thinking. Like, the longer you're in it, the more you're just like, no, it's actually fine. Is the network still processing transactions? Yes. Are they cheap? Yes. Is there still, millions of people in the world holding crypto and excited to transact and trade it and build more apps and companies around it? Yes. Well, there you go. It's actually not that dead. Rumors of my death have been greatly exaggerated. Like, that's basically Bitcoin's like mantra, so that should hopefully also help to just not panic a bit about what's going on. So yeah, that's kind of it. Message to the community. Do you have anything you want to say, Jett? Or you've had a couple of these recently. I'm happy to let me think. What do I want to tell the community? I don't know. Thank you. Just thank you for listening. I hope you've enjoyed the last year. It's been really fun for me. Like I said, it's actually kind of flown by a little bit, and should be another good year in 2022. So yeah, wherever you are in the world, whatever's going on in your life, if you're having a tough time like I was 1 year ago, then I hope you push through it. Like time can fix a lot of issues, as long as you just keep your head above water. As long as you're still in the game, you're still got good chances it's going to go well, right? So yeah, I think that's really my message to the community, and that's it. We'll go to the last slide then. Thanks for the thank you to all the donations, and I want to shout out as well Ricky. I got my first Patreon subscriber, which completely shocked me because I started that in the early days to see if anybody would subscribe, and nobody did, which made sense because everybody was like, oh, this fiat bullshit. Like, if anybody wanted to donate, they would just do it in BCH, which is obviously great, right? But anyway, somehow or another he found the link and subscribed. So thank you very much. I will of course be market buying BCH with that money. But yeah, the start guide and FAQs and a lot of extra links and stuff are available at bitcoincashpodcast.com. And yeah, Jett, any shout outs or anything you want to get in there at the end?
No, honestly, I think you know what, my shout out is for the people I've known in the Bitcoin Cash scene since I got involved. Hopefully 2022 things let up. I'm meeting you bastards. I'm traveling around. I'm gonna shake some hands. That's it.
2022, the year of meat space handshaking.
Yeah,
I love it.
I'll give you a hug.
Yeah, absolutely, man. We've definitely got to try and line that up. Yeah, let's try and make it happen. All right, cool.
Wanna go back to the intro.
Do it.
Close it out.
Yeah. Hit him with the intro again. Put a lot of work into that intro. So right. Hit him with that. Until next time. Thanks, everyone.
There will be no real non-controlled currency in the world.
We're coming for you, banks.
Bitcoin is punk rock. Deal with it.
You split, we bankrupt you.
Do you use Lightning wallets to pay for things or not?
No.
Bitcoin Cash would be seen as more of a threat to the United States hegemony than Bitcoin.
Miles, tell him, what's your favorite kind of money?
Bitcoin Cash.